Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot and a member of the PMDG 777 beta team. Welcome to this tutorial on how to use the Autocruise features and time acceleration with the PMDG Boeing 777. We will start with the Autocruise features at first and thereafter we will look at time acceleration, since I do realize that many flight simmers prefer to only use Autocruise without time acceleration. Even though I'm personally a huge fan of time acceleration, as it enables a flight simmer to do realistic long-haul flights, which the 777 is designed to fly in a typical evening's time available. So let's go ahead and start with the Autocruise features that work in real time as well. There's two menus available. On the Universal Flight Tablet, you got the Autocruise menu available right at the top. So Autocruise up here, you click that one, then you got the option Auto Step Climb, and if you turn this one on, then the aircraft is going to automatically carry out a step climb at every step altitude you have in here. Note that you can manually influence those step altitudes on the legs page by inserting manual step climbs down here. We talked a little bit about that in the cruise tutorial already, and I can recommend you to have a look at that, since the automatic step climbs that the 777 calculates may be very close to the aircraft's maximum altitude and might therefore in turbulent weather bring you into problems. This is especially recommendable since when operating under automatic cruise, I assume that the flight simmer is not close to his computer, and therefore any real problems caused by the aircraft getting into its aerodynamic limits might not possibly be rectified by the autopilot. So I very much recommend that you enter your step climbs at least per your SimBrief flight plan, or do some manual calculations on these and enter them as discussed in the cruise tutorial. From there on, the other option we have available is pause at top of descent. Now when pause of top of descent is turned on, then your aircraft is automatically going to enter active pause at the waypoint that is defined as top of descent. So whenever your top of descent passes, your aircraft is going to pause the simulator so that you can resume the flight whenever you return from whatever you are doing at the moment. With both of those options, be very careful that you disable them when you are flying online on VATSIM. Back in the day in P3D, where there were more aircraft with auto step climb flying around, you kept hearing VATSIM ATC complaining that aircraft are just changing their altitude without asking for a clearance first, because the auto step climb feature simply initiates an automatic step climb. So be very sure that you only enable this option if you're not flying online. And if you previously used it on an offline flight, it might still be on when you conduct your next flight online. So be very careful that this feature is not active when you're flying online. Next up we got time compression. And there is two different methods we can use for time compression. The first one is auto time compression, and this has two buttons available. So you've got the auto time compression on/off button on the left side, and then you can decide up to what simulation rate you want time compression to accelerate. So let's try this out. If we turn on automatic time compression, we can see this confirmed on the clock because our digits are turning into this turquoise color. Now, the aircraft itself shows you your currently active sim rate down here, and if the window is not opened, you can see the current sim rate on the top of the Universal Flight Tablet up here. And in auto time compression, the aircraft is basically going to maintain accelerated time unless a deviation from your flight plan profile, that could be either lateral as in route, or vertical as in altitude, or a speed deviation as in overspeed or underspeed, occurs. So when any of these deviations occurs, the simulator is going to fall back into real time, and in real time the autopilot has a lot greater capabilities to recover to normal flight. Now, the autopilot is something that's really worth pointing out. The PMDG 777 autopilot is the first autopilot in Microsoft Flight Simulator that is fully optimized to fly along your route in accelerated time. If you look at other aircraft, such as the Phoenix 320 or the Inibuild's A300, you will notice that once you go over 2x time acceleration, they start encountering problems. They cannot maintain their route, they cannot maintain their altitude. This is not the case with the PMDG 777. Up to 8x time acceleration, the autopilot maintains the route and the altitude within acceptable deviations. That is a route deviation of 0.2, 0.3 nautical miles left and right as a maximum in a turn, and normally it maintains the altitude within plus minus 100 feet as well. You can see it right now. We are flying with 4x simulation rate, and you can see that it goes slightly up and down on the altimeter, but overall it maintains the altitude almost perfectly over here. This makes it possible not to fly only straight long lines like the PMDG 737 could, but the 777 can actually also fly all those turns associated with airways like you have on those routes to Dubai or on those routes from Europe to Asia, making time accelerated flight a lot more accessible for flight simmers. Now you can see as we're approaching a turn right now, or as we have a slight altitude deviation, the plane just fell back in real time and now it's accelerated already again. Most likely it noticed that it was on track to get a larger deviation, so it just went back to real time, corrected its flight profile, and now it's back into accelerated flight once again. Likewise, the FMC predicts if there is a turn approaching that the aircraft would not be capable of taking in accelerated time. If that happens, just prior to reaching that turn, you're going to fall back into real time, and the aircraft's going to fly the turn, and as soon as the turn is complete, it's going to start accelerating the time again in order to resume your accelerated flight. A very useful feature that really deserves to be mentioned in the PMDG 777. I know that a lot of simulator pilots do not like using accelerated time because it would be unrealistic. But let's face it, the vast majority of flight simmers only have their evenings and have like 2 or 3 hours to do a flight. It would be a pity if you could only do short haul or short medium haul flights in that time, because the 777 is really made to be used as a long haul airliner. Now let's go ahead and have a look at another feature. So we can turn off the automatic time compression up here, and the simulator is going to fall back into real time. Now, there is another feature currently available through the airline options. Hopefully that's going to come to the Universal Flight Tablet later. That's in the PMDG setup, options, simulation, and now if we go a little bit to the right, I believe it is page number 6, yes it is, you can control what the chronometer button is going to do if you turn it to the right. So if you've got the analog watch installed in your aircraft, in the real one, the chronometer button up here is just a push button. You just push it in and that starts the stopwatch like this. Let's reset that one. PMDG has slightly changed this one. In the PMDG it can be turned. A left turn usually reflects the real world pushing operation, but a right hand turn can control your time acceleration. So if the simulation options are set to auto time compression, then making a right turn on that chronometer button is automatically going to enable auto time acceleration, similar to how it worked when you enabled it down here on the Universal Flight Tablet. But if we just fall back in real time over here, and if we now select this from auto time compression to direct simulation rate control, then we can use this to directly control the simulation rate. So every right turn of the chrono button is going to double the simulation rate. So right now we're in real time, as can be seen by the color of the clock having its real world color. If we click this once, it's going to get amber, and in amber you are flying at 2x time acceleration. If you click it again, you increase your simulation rate to 4x. Now it turns red. So now we're flying in 4x, as can be seen on the top of the Universal Flight Tablet again. If you click it again, you go to 8x, and as you can see, the PMDG 777 is perfectly capable of flying in 8x time acceleration. It maintains its route very nicely, it maintains the altitude rather well, and even if we were to approach some turns, normally the aircraft is capable of flying through those turns without any greater problems. So 8x time acceleration works very well. However, we need to be aware that Microsoft Flight Simulator starts to encounter issues at 8x and higher. So if I'm looking around right now, you can see that my simulator is stuttering a little bit, and that is because Microsoft Flight Simulator tries to reload all the terrain but can't really cope with it. So at 8x your frame rate is going to start dropping a little bit when you're over the ocean, so you can very nicely use 8x when crossing the Atlantic or the Pacific, but when you're flying over land, when you're over Europe for example, and there are lots of objects to be loaded, then the frame rate can really deteriorate under 8x. The aircraft is also capable of doing 16x, so if I press this again, now we're flying at 16x, but you can see the frame rate here. That's because the simulator has problems to cope with it. However, while the simulator has problems, your aircraft is still proceeding right on track and is still flying right along the track. However, if you have to take turns at this high of a simulation rate, it can happen that deviations in terms of altitude and route following occur, which the aircraft may or may not be able to correct at this simulation rate. However, as you can see, here we start entering a little bit of some turbulence, but you can see it's more or less still following the route nicely. It's followed the turn over 30 west very, very precisely, and we're now on our way towards 20 west. So altitude management is a little bit problematic here at these simulation rates, but if we just go back to 8x, so if we click the left side of the chronometer button under direct sim rate control, we fall back in real time immediately. It's just that sometimes the simulator has problems processing this. So here we go, now it's registered the click. Now we're back in real time, and now the aircraft immediately resumes its original FMC targets or autopilot targets. So if we return to 8x, you will see that the aircraft has no problems at all under these conditions. At 16x, you've seen that the simulator starts to stutter a little bit and the aircraft might have some difficulty maintaining altitude. However, it is really worth pointing out that it is incredible that the PMDG autopilot is capable of maintaining a controlled flight at 16x simulation rate. You will not be able to find any other aircraft in the simulator that is capable of doing this. Many already lose control at double simulation rate, and I don't know about any other one that can take 8x. The Horizon 787, depending on the frame rate, can do 4x, but it's really cool that the PMDG 777 is capable of slowing down long-haul flights like this. So a little bit of background information that might help your planning. Now, don't think that if a real-world flight from London to New York takes 7 hours, and you plan to do your flight at 8x time acceleration, you will be able to complete it in under an hour. You would really have to use 8x from liftoff all the way to touchdown, but you don't really want to do that, do you? Normally, climb to cruise takes about 20 minutes. Time from top of descent to touchdown about 25 or 30 minutes. So take those times as real time and then take anything in between and divide it by the simulation rate you want to use. So a typical flight London to New York using time acceleration is going to be anywhere in the region between 1 hour and a half to about 2 hours of flight time. That's just to give you a little bit of a planning here so that you can plan your simulator evenings when using time acceleration. I do hope that you found this video interesting. Be sure to let me know your feedback. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I'm very much looking forward to your opinion on the Autocruise features in the PMDG Boeing 777. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you're interested in more, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Finally, a quick reminder, if you're interested in a full tutorial of the 777 with a lot of backgrounds as well in a written version, have a look at my Ultimate 777 Guide ebook. More on that in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.